Hey everyone, Geophysicist Stefan Burns here. We are just 2 days away now from the perihelion of Interstellar Object 3I Atlas, its closest approach to the Sun. And this is a key date in time for this interstellar object. If you've been tracking this, you know why. Because that is when it could perform an Oberth maneuver, and this is a redirection of its trajectory based off of accelerating or deaccelerating. So then this could change where it's going to fling off with that gravitational slingshot around the sun. Now, there's already a ton of information and just speculation, discussion online about 3I Atlas. 95% of it, honestly, based off my assessment, I've been tracking this very closely, is BS, unfortunately. Some people are already saying it's performed this reverse thruster sequence, it's headed straight to Earth, but we don't have any evidence of that. The CCOR1 coronagraph imagery that we have from the GOES 19 satellite in geostationary orbit shows 3I Atlas, albeit very dimly, but it does show it from around October 18th to the 24th. At the edges of the coronagraph, you can see that right there. And it doesn't appear to have deviated at all from its expected trajectory based off of prior astronomical measurements, nor has it really significantly deviated with its expected velocity. Again, it's going to be reaching at peak velocity of 68 kilometers per second during its perihelion, but perihelion is about to occur. So if it is of technological or alien origin, and as I've said many times, I think that's by far the lowest probability, 0.0001, something like that. These are my thoughts and opinions and beliefs based off my research. Do your own. Well, that's the time it would do it. So in this video, we're going to speculate though on whether 3I Atlas is alien and technological or something like that. And if it was, what's the logical thing for it to do? Well, it wouldn't fly to Earth, very likely, because there's 8 billion plus people here, and it'd be like an immune system reaction. It just doesn't make sense. And there's a lot of, civilization already, and yeah, we're in the Goldilocks zone, big planet, magnetic field, resources, but it's simply, if you are a interstellar colonizing group, you're going to go somewhere where you're not going to get attacked viciously. And if they have intel already on our solar system on us, they know that we don't have the capability at this moment in time to go chase them down. So yeah, 3I Atlas performed a close flyby of Mars, another prime candidate for colonization. Based off of what we know, it did not send anything out around Mars. It didn't land there, it kept going on, but perhaps it collected some data. Again, we're speculating on the alien technological hypothesis in this video, okay? So again, I've said I don't think that's the most likely, but this is the speculation of this video. It performs its perihelion. It could perform a very slight Oberth maneuver to reach Jupiter because its orbital trajectory at this moment in time already has it passing very close to the biggest planet in our solar system in March of 2026. So it would only have to do a very slight deviation using very little fuel. You want to use as much fuel as possible to accelerate, to cut down that travel time. And then it could just do that final burn and reach Jupiter. And well, what's at Jupiter, you ask? Well, there's a whole bunch of moons, dozens and dozens and dozens of moons. And some of them are quite large. You have Ganymede, which is the largest moon in the solar system, has its own magnetic field, the only moon with a magnetic field. It's incredible. It's bigger than Mercury, Pluto, our moon. You also have Callisto, you have Europa, all three of those in close proximity to each other, orbiting around Jupiter. They all have this water ocean buried underneath kilometers thick of ice. So you have huge reservoirs of water there, which you can use to create fuel, and you have low gravity, so it's easy to launch into orbit, and you have some other very beneficial things as it relates to interplanetary colonization situated around Jupiter. And so it'd be very easy for 3I Atlas, if it was alien or technological, to perform a very slight Oberth maneuver to then reach Jupiter, and specifically the planets of Ganymede, Callisto, and Europa. So that is a possibility that we are going to explore in today's video, where 3I Atlas may have come from and what the first steps it would take would be if that is its intent, because we wouldn't be able to chase it down. We don't have really the capability. Maybe we'd be able to make it within like a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen years or so. But as of this moment, they could set up shop on Jupiter, basically the moons, right? And it'd be completely uncontested. Is that what's happening? Well, it's certainly possible. And so a good place to start with this conversation would be, where would 3I Atlas have launched from if it is of alien or technological origin? Of course, the universe is very vast, so we wouldn't really know. But there are some candidates which are more likely than others, and one of those would be Barnard's star, which is the second closest star system to our own. The closest is the Alpha Centauri system. You also have Proxima Centauri, so there's 3 stars that are a little bit closer than Barnard's star. Barnard's star is a red dwarf, but it's traveling at very high velocity towards our own star system at this moment in time. So it's only about 5.96 light years away. It's very close. So let us see the position of not only 3i Atlas, but also Barnard's star. Now I have Stellarium loaded up here, and we see our constellations, we see our ecliptic plane, okay? And we see here, I have this set for 2020, and the reason why is because I want to go far enough back that 3i Atlas is not zooming through our perspective here on Earth very quickly. So we can type in specifically, using our search function, 3i Atlas, and let us go a little forward in time so it reveals itself, okay? And we'll zoom in and we'll put a marker on this. So we just simply shift and right click, or left click rather. That's 3i Atlas. You see that came in the constellation of Sagittarius, bordering on Capricorn. Okay, these are the constellations, true night sky positions. And then we can go here and we can also search for Barnard's star, and we see its location, and it's not visible to the naked eye if you were wondering, because it is a red dwarf and its light output is quite a bit less than ours. But it is visible in the sky with the right equipment. And it's the second closest star system, as I mentioned, to ours. Look at how close together 3i Atlas is to Barnard's star, right? This is in the constellation of Ophiuchus, the serpent bearer. And here's the serpent. And then you have 3i Atlas there coming in from Sagittarius. So it's really not that far apart. And with this velocity of 3i Atlas, when we first detect it, we'll round up from 58 to 60 kilometers per second. It's about 60 kilometers per second. And the distance of Barnard's star from our solar system at 5.96 light years, you do the math, that comes out to about a 30,000 year trip to go from Barnard's star to our star system at, again, approximately 60 kilometers per second. Which isn't that long in the grand scheme. It's a tremendously long period of time, but as it relates to this being aliens or technology, and under the speed constraints that we observed, that lines up perfectly. Now, perhaps this thing would have been much faster and they actually deaccelerated before we ever picked them up with our telescopes. That's very possible under this scenario. So maybe that travel speed gets cut way down. Maybe they're going 600 kilometers per second, right? And then they reduce down. But you start to get interesting effects with things once you travel at high velocity. So that might not be the case. Either way, they are quite close together. So I'm not saying that 3i Atlas is from Barnard's star, but it makes a good candidate because it's a red dwarf that's already headed towards our system. And actually, there seems to be a bit of a resonance between Barnard's star and our star system. It was also about 14,000 years ago, quite close to our star. And it has planets around it. There are known planets around Barnard's star. 4 or maybe even more planets are orbiting around that red dwarf. In this scenario, it's a very likely candidate and they're not that far apart. So the orbital trajectory, maybe if they have advanced technology, there's some rogue planets out there that they did some slingshots around, and that's how they went up from here to now along the ecliptic plane. It would take a little bit longer, but they could have also done that redirect just relatively recently, where they then swoop down in on the ecliptic plane to then do their flyby of Mars, the Sun, and also Jupiter. So they could have come from Barnard's star. Of course, there's a ton of other possibilities, but the real thing here is destination Jupiter, because it is a solar system checkmate as it relates to establishing dominance within this star system for resources and for colonizing across the entire star system, not thinking about just one planet or one moon, but the entire planetary system. Going to Jupiter is absolutely key. So you've launched from some sort of star system or somewhere in deep space. You've arrived to the star system that we inhabit. Well, what's the next step? It's arriving to your destination. So you're going to plan your trajectory to be as smart and as intelligent as possible to collect as much data, then you're probably going to perform an Oberth maneuver during your slingshot around the sun. So here we see 3 different examples. This is the normal trajectory that was plotted. Here's our sun. That's the first Oberth maneuver, and you see that they kick in at different times. So they accelerated here. This time they accelerated there at the same delta V, so the same change in velocity, 7 kilometers per second. And here they wait even longer, and you see how that trajectory changes quite a bit based off of the gravitational field that the sun and other planets create. So this is something that could happen in the next 2-3 days if 3i Atlas is of alien or technological origin. Again, I don't think that that's going to be the case. Once it emerges from the blinding light of the sun around mid-late November, I think we're going to confirm that's right in position. But you can't say until you have those confirmation observations. Until then, we have to just hope and pray that this is not a colonizing interstellar alien group or something, because think about how that would change everything on our planet. So what sort of Oberth maneuver would be needed for 3i Atlas to reach Jupiter? Well, here we see our solar system as provided by the Sky Live. This 3D solar system visualization tool is linked in the video description. This is based off of the astronomical observations that we have collected across a few months of 3i Atlas, and this is set for today, the 27th. Its perihelion is the 29th. We see that very clearly right here. Its closest approach to the sun, 1.36 astronomical units. One thing that we've been talking about a lot on this channel is just how much energy that 3i Atlas has been receiving. 3 big coronal mass ejections, a few others before, during, and after that main sequence, and of course a tremendous amount of radiation from the sun, about 735 watts per square meter, whereas in deep space you're getting 10 to negative 7, 10 to negative 8 watts per square meter. So a huge difference. But if we go forward, look at that. We see that 3i Atlas has this trajectory cutting right through the orbit of Jupiter, and it's also very closely aligned with the ecliptic plane. So it's cutting through the ecliptic plane specifically around the orbit of Mars. There would have to be some sort of redirect there so it doesn't shoot underneath Jupiter. But if you performed an Oberth maneuver, let's go forward in time and see what you would need to do. You would be your 3i Atlas is arriving here behind Jupiter around the 17th of March or so. Its closest approach to Jupiter is, I think it's the 17th of March. It's right in this time window here. So you would need to go ahead and perform an acceleration near that perihelion of just a little bit to all of a sudden effectively go like this and move towards Jupiter. Now, if you were to perform a reverse thrust, which is what a lot of people have been talking about online, there's no basis, there's no evidence that 3i Atlas has done this. It's, I don't know, farming for clicks or something. I really don't know. You would need to reduce your velocity such that instead of just having this slight slingshot, all of a sudden you go like this. And then if you go forward in time, we see that you'd have to really reverse thrust to then reach the Earth or Mercury. But Mercury's blasted by the sun, and it's really hot, really cold. It's very few places that you would feasibly set up on Mercury. No water, no atmosphere, so it doesn't make sense. But if you did just a slight acceleration near perihelion, you could decrease this deflection even more, and then we go forward again to March or so, and you would arrive right to Jupiter. And the primary reason why are these 4 moons, the classic Galilean moons of Jupiter. We have Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. We're going to be focusing a lot on Ganymede in this video because that's just where my intuition's kind of tugging me. Really because Ganymede has a magnetic field, something that very few objects in our solar system have. You have Mercury, you have Earth, you have Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Ganymede. That's it. As far as we know, these are the only things that have magnetic fields. That's likely to change and evolve as we send out more probes, especially to like Uranus and Neptune. But that's it for right now, those objects. But Io is very close to Jupiter. It's very volcanic, unlikely that you have any sort of colonization there. But you have 3 big moons all close together, and they all have these big bodies of water to them. So these big water oceans locked underneath these thick ice crusts that if you did have a spaceship that was capable of going through interstellar space and was completely self-sufficient, and it also had pre-built industry and machinery and stuff, you could set up and then drill through that ice to access that water and start producing rocket fuel. Water, of course, is the universal solvent, so it's needed for a bunch of different things that we take for granted here on the planet. There's a ton of it in space, but there's also not that much of it in space. Like deep space, where there's nothing around you, good luck getting water. But if you land on Ganymede, and then you also quickly set up colonies on Europa and Callisto, well, you're in business, baby. You're ready to go. And here we have a size comparison between Ganymede and Earth. Earth is quite a large planet. Of course, compared to the gas giants, it's small, but compared to all the things in our solar system, it's one of the larger planets. But Ganymede is no slouch. Again, bigger than our moon, bigger than Mercury. It's one of the largest objects in our solar system, has a magnetic field, and its diameter is 5,268 kilometers across. Earth's is 12,742. You see the density of it is quite a bit lower. That's why we think it has these large bodies of water within its interior, and then it has a metal / rocky core that's driving this geodynamo for the magnetic field. Look at its gravity too. Here's the thing, 1.4 meters per second squared compared to Earth, which is about 10. You want to be able to launch things into space easily. And you also want to have an easy time at landing. And on Earth, we are really fighting against quite a lot of gravity. So we have to have huge rockets, tons of fuel. And then if you want to have a bigger payload, that requires more fuel, which adds weight, which adds more fuel. So it's this compounding equation, gets kind of ridiculous. On Ganymede, you could set up and then you could launch off so easy, it would be like nothing effectively. But it's still a big planet with plenty of space, right? And you can set up your colonies, domes or shelters or things, and set up your drill rigs to go down to get access to the water. There could even be hydrothermal vent activity underneath the oceans of Ganymede that you could tap into and generate energy that way, just sustainable, renewable energy without having to search for uranium, or maybe they have fusion reactors. We really don't know, but you're going to have just like effortless energy production if you can get down to those hydrothermal vents that may or may not exist. But it's a big planet and it's located further away from Jupiter than some of the other moons. So Io is very close, Europa is close, the radiation load for those planets is very high. Now the radiation for Ganymede is also very high. You get pretty much that lethal limit on the surface of Ganymede in about 8 days. That's what they kind of estimate for Ganymede based off of our Juno probe and some others that have collected this radiation data. Because Ganymede is located within the magnetic field and radiation belts of Jupiter, Callisto is further out. You get less radiation on the planet of Callisto, but you have the magnetic field here, and presumably if you have a craft that can travel through interstellar space for a long time, you have shielding, you have the tech, you can figure out the radiation problem. You can also dig into the ice crust of Ganymede and protect yourself from radiation that way. So these are all possibilities that exist, and it's a perfect launch point to other parts of the solar system because Jupiter is 5.2 astronomical units out, so it's fairly close to the sun, but it's not super close. And it's close to Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, which are further out. So for us here on Earth, it takes a long time to go out to Uranus or Neptune, for example. We've only done it with Voyager 1 and 2. Whereas with, if you're on Jupiter already, there's times where we get these alignments. So it's pretty easy to just hop on over and start to set up colonies that way. And then you could also then work backwards, set up on the asteroid belt with, like, for example, the dwarf planet Ceres, and then to Mars. So you could start to work your way inwards as well. And at this moment in time, you'd be effectively uncontested in space. So you could set up across the entire solar system, maybe very quickly before we would even have a chance to respond. Because if you have all the different planets orbiting around, Earth is one spot. If you have colonies in other spots, you have Jupiter here sometimes, you have Mars there, you have maybe Ceres, you have a colony on Titan with Saturn. You could have this presence across the entire solar system, meaning that you can drop in at any single point in time depending on the colony, and you're not limited to where you are based in relative position to another planet. So that really is the checkmate move, and there are many others. And another super important aspect of all this is resources, and Jupiter has the resources. It has abundant hydrogen and helium with the planet itself. You have to figure out the gravity well equation, but you could perhaps siphon some of that off if you need those elements. Maybe they're also scattered across the other moons of Jupiter. There's likely a variety of other rare elements and exotic compounds across the Jupiterian system, but it's also close to the asteroid belt. So you have effectively unlimited high-grade minerals and metals. And here's Jupiter, here's the sun, here's the inner solar system. We see our main asteroid belt there. What are these guys? These are the Trojan asteroids, and they are in these locked resonances with Jupiter. So they're about 60 degrees ahead and behind the planet. And so what that means is that if you are on Ganymede, Callisto, Europa, whatever, right, you have a settlement there, and you have a very low gravity, so you just jet off pretty simply, you could then travel here where you have this kind of gravity neutral zone in between the sun and Jupiter, and you wouldn't all of a sudden launch to the other side of the solar system while you're collecting your resources, and then you could go back. So that's the thing with harvesting material from the asteroid belt, is that you lock onto an asteroid, start mining it, all of a sudden your mining crew is over here, and now it's this very prohibitive journey back. You have to wait all the way for the rotation back, and this just isn't practical. But these Trojan asteroids staying locked in this resonance with Jupiter means that you could simply fly there. Now you're in this kind of gravity neutral zone as it relates to orbiting around the sun, and then you can simply fly back. The gravity is very low the whole time. Once you accelerate and punch it, you're there, and Ganymede, Callisto, Europa all have tons of water, which makes the highest grade rocket fuel. So you see how this all makes sense. You wouldn't want to go to Earth. The gravity is too much. There's probably a hostile population. There are 8 billion people who are like, we don't want you guys, right? And you would have uncontested access to all parts of the solar system by settling at Jupiter. And another very important aspect of Ganymede as it relates to solar system colonization is its atmosphere. Now it has a very thin atmosphere, but it has quite a lot of oxygen in it. So what that means is that if we rely on oxygen to live. You don't go without oxygen for like 3 minutes, boom, you're out. Maybe other life forms require oxygen too. Seems like that's probably the case. You would want oxygen the moment you land. Before you could go down and drill and reach the water ocean trapped under dozens of kilometers of ice of more, right? You want to be able to extract some, concentrate it, and get your biodomes or whatever set up with a breathable atmosphere. Now, once you're down to the water, you could perform hydrolysis on the water, get hydrogen, get oxygen, do a whole bunch of stuff with that. But you could hit the ground running on Ganymede because of its oxygen-rich atmosphere, though it is a low concentration. But if you have the technology to condense it, boom, you're golden. So there are so many reasons why going to Jupiter would be the perfect play for some sort of alien or technological interplanetary colonization force, because you are situated perfectly territorially in the solar system as explained. You have access to all the Trojan asteroids for mineral mining, and of course the main asteroid belt as well, because there's different populations and things there. You have all the moons of Jupiter you can colonize. It's not that hard to get to Saturn. Every 20 years they have a great conjunction. They get close together in the sky. You have Titan nearby, another very big moon. You could go into the inner solar system very easily. Mars could be quickly crossed off the list. You know, if you did that close flyby of Mars, 3i Atlas, maybe they identified key sites to colonize after they've set up shop on Ganymede, Callisto, and then probably also Europa. So you see how this all fits together. Now again, I think this is a very low possibility, but this alien angle as it relates to here on Earth, while there is some evidence that there's weird things happening here already, if you are coming in to colonize the system, I don't think it makes sense to go straight to Earth. I think it makes sense to go to the king of the planets, Jupiter, and set up shop there. So I will keep you 100% up to date with what is happening with 3i Atlas on this channel, as well as everything else that's occurring within our solar system. This includes what's happening energetically here on Earth, earthquake activity, volcanic eruptions, Schumann resonance spikes, also solar activity, space weather, planetary resonances and alignments, how that influences all of this. For example, we forecasted nearly 3 months in advance of all those coronal mass ejections that launched on the far side towards 3i Atlas, that was very likely to occur based off of the alignment that 3i Atlas made with the sun, the moon, and the earth, that superior conjunction on the 21st. That's when we had the biggest coronal mass ejection of that sequence, right on the 21st. So we look at this very open and holistically, and we have a pretty good track record here. Hope to see you around. Again, I've been your host, Stefan Burns. Thank you all so much. And if you like this shirt that I'm wearing, you want to be picked up by the spaceship. I joke about that. I actually wouldn't want to be picked up at all. But if you want to join in on the fun, we have the Interstellar 3i Atlas cotton long sleeve shirt here. It's 100% cotton and it's super comfortable, great for fall weather. This is available to everyone in the United States, size small to double XL. We see the front and the back. This is artwork by my father, Lee Burns, right here. We see that there. So really incredible artwork painted with natural soil pigment. We digitized it, and there are many other things on the website. This is earthevolution.com/store. Link in the video description. Also, as products underneath the video, we see a variety of tea blends, and also we have our herb coffee. These are 2 big sellers, spirituality, herb coffee. I recommend you look at these. More merch. For example, the Cosmos Within t-shirt is fantastic. Size small to 4XL, and it comes in white as well as midnight blue, and it has this sacred geometry design built into it with the Fibonacci spiral going right to the solar plexus, and more artwork by my father Lee Burns on the back. So check out the store. Help me help you effectively. These are all really high quality herbal tea blends that we make and mix ourselves, all organic. And we also have merch and much more. Again, that's www.earthevolution.com/store. Wishing each and every single one of you well. Please take care of yourselves. Have a great, happy Halloween. We have perihelion coming up. I think there's going to be some craziness that ensues from this time period now all the way through the full supermoon, November 5th and 6th. So make sure you subscribe to stay up to date, and I'll see you all in the next video.